up, everybody? My name is John Dewberry, and I am back for another word of encouragement. So this is going to be part two of words of encouragement. I put out my first video about 3 months ago now, and so this is going to be a continuation of that topic. I guess it's turning out to be a little series or whatever. So here we are again. So basically, last video I was just talking about, we all have a lot, going on right now. There's a lot going on in the world. And on top of that, we all have our own personal issues and stressors. And, a lot of people are grieving and things like that. So, we as people, we have many spaces we can go to deal with things like that if we're not escaping. But, we can go to therapy, we talk to each other, we can, write, make music, kind of voice our frustrations that way. But I do believe that the Bible creates a safe space for us to do that as well. And I believe God wants us to do that. I believe He encourages that. And I think I just want to highlight that fact because I believe it gets overlooked sometimes. And so I believe that it's shown through the Book of Lamentations and the poems in the Book of Psalms. So that was basically the point I was trying to make. If you have not watched that video, I definitely encourage you to go watch it because it ties into this one. So anyway, basically today I'm going to start out by telling a personal story. About a year and a half ago, man, I just remember I was just going through continual disappointment after disappointment after disappointment, financial hit after financial hit, and me and my fiance were getting ready to get in our new place. And it's like when you trying to transition and level up, life just start lifing, and it was one of those type of. I feel like most people can relate. It's just like, bro, life, chill. Like you're doing a lot right now. I'm just trying to do my thing, and you want to act up. That's basically what was happening, and so yeah, I'm gonna leave the story right there for now. We're gonna come back to it. So last video, I was talking about how the poems in the Book of Lamentations and the Book of Psalms are poems full of grief and frustration and confusion, and they're voicing their anger at God. And what's interesting is a lot of the poems actually end in hope in God. So I want to read a few just really quick. So Psalms 13 verses 1 through 2 says, How long, Lord? Will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long am I to feel anxious in my soul, with grief in my heart all the day? How long will my enemy be exalted over me? And then you skip down to verses 5 through 6. It says, But I have trusted in your faithfulness. My heart shall rejoice in your salvation. I will sing to the Lord because He has looked after me. Here's another one, Psalms 12 verses 1 through 8. Help, O Lord, for the godly are fast disappearing. The faithful have vanished from the earth. Neighbors lie to each other, speaking with flattering lips and deceitful hearts. May the Lord cut off their flattering lips and silence their boastful tongues. They say, we will lie to our heart's content. Our lips are our own. Who can stop us? The Lord replies, I have seen violence done to the helpless, and I have heard the groans of the poor. Now I will rise up to rescue them, as they have longed for me to do. The Lord's promises are pure like silver refined in the furnace, purified 7 times over. Therefore, Lord, we know you will protect the oppressed, preserving them forever from this lying generation, even though the wicked strut about and evil is praised throughout the land. Last one. Lamentations chapter 3 verses 19 through 23. I remember my affliction and my wandering, the bitterness and the gall. I well remember them, and my soul is downcast within me. Yet this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for His compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. For context, just in case you guys don't remember, or you're looking at this for the first time, like, these are poems that are expressed in terrible times. Like, specifically in the Lamentations one, it's from a time when the Israelites are literally conquered and taken into exile, and their city, their home, is destroyed, and they're taken away from it. They in the Psalms, like, these are times where they don't see God around. They're like, what is going on. And it's just interesting how a lot of these poems, even though they express their confusion and anger, they end in hope. So, what is biblical hope and what gave them hope? So, different cultures around the world have different origin stories on how they believe the universe came to be. You have the Big Bang, you have Pangu and the egg of the world, otherwise known as yin and yang. You have the Greeks' origin story, which are about the Titans, and you also have the Judeo-Christian origin story, which is the God Yahweh creating the ordered world in 7 days from disorder, and also creating humans. And that is the perspective that I fall into, and that's the perspective that I'm speaking from today. So in that story, God creates humans, and fast forward all the way thousands and thousands of generations later, he makes this promise to a guy named Abraham, and he tells Abraham, "Look, I'm gonna bless you. I'm gonna protect you, and you're gonna have the land, and all of your descendants will be blessed as well. Y'all will all have the same blessing." And fast forward again, centuries later, the Israelites, his descendants, they find themselves in slavery in Egypt in the book of Exodus. So you read this and you're like, okay, God, what happened to the blessings? His family, his descendants are now in Egypt. And then you get to the story of Moses and the burning bush, which is a story that leaves you with a lot of questions. But that's how the story goes. So God speaks to Moses through this bush in Exodus chapter 3, verses 7 through 10. It says, "Then the Lord told him, I have certainly seen the oppression of my people in Egypt. I have heard their cries of distress because of their harsh slave drivers. Yes, I am aware of their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the power of the Egyptians and lead them out of Egypt into their own fertile and spacious land. It is a land flowing with milk and honey, the land where the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites now live. Look, the cry of the people of Israel has reached me, and I have seen how harshly the Egyptians abused them. Now go, for I am sending you to Pharaoh. You must lead my people, Israel, out of Egypt." And then Moses goes on to protest like 5 times. He's like, "Yo, nah, like I ain't trying to do that. I can't speak well. Like, what? Like, who are you? Like, who are they gonna? Who am I gonna tell them who sent me? Like, and this is such an important question. He asks God, like, what's your name? Like, who are you? And this is because there are different gods out there. People believe in different things. So the different gods that they believe in are revealing themselves to different people. So who are you? Which God are you? Because you could be any of them. And this is very important. This is the moment I want to focus on. Exodus 3, chapter 15. God also said to Moses, "Say this to the people of Israel. Yahweh, the God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my eternal name, my name to remember for all generations." God actually has a name, by the way. The God of the Hebrew Bible. Just in case you didn't know that, his name's Yahweh. That's a fun fact for you. But the story goes, you have the story of the 10 plagues, you have the story of the Passover, and you have the story of the Red Sea. All stories which also leave you with a bunch of questions. And that's okay. But let's continue. So the story of the Red Sea, Moses parts the Red Sea, him and the Israelites cross over in dry land. When they get across, the water closes back in. Pharaoh and his army rushes in, and they all drown. Again, questions, but that's okay. But this story becomes extremely, extremely important for the Hebrew people. This becomes their foundation story. So back to the question, what is hope? Hope basically means to wait for, or it means to have an expectation. And Dr. Tim from Bible Project, he likes to always express that it's different from optimism. Hope is different from optimism. Optimism is usually you can look at your circumstances and go, "Oh, I can see how this can work out. I can see how, it's bad, but I can point to things." So hope, biblical hope, is in God. It's in a specific person, and that person is God. What happens when your world collapses around you? How did the Israelites have hope when Babylon came and destroyed everything and took them into exile. Going back to my personal story, just real quick, all those situations were happening back to back, and it was tough. Tough on my mental for sure. But the only way I was able to look forward was by looking backward. I would reflect on the times what I thought it was the end all be all, and God made a way like each and every time. I'm not done out here. I'm still here. And that was the only thing that centered me and gave me encouragement for the future. I just think we've embraced a culture of not focusing on the past. And I think that the ancient Hebrew people would strongly disagree with that idea. And here's why. We have this idea of a blind faith. And I disagree with it. Let me explain why. Let me give you an example. So I definitely get the sentiment behind blind faith. Like, you don't know what to do. You just got to have blind faith in God, or you're having trouble believing, just have blind faith. And here's why I don't think that's logical. Let me give you an example. Imagine this. Work with me here. Say, for instance, you're blindfolded, right? And someone is leading you by hand up to a very high ledge of a mountain, a cliff, whatever, a high place, and you're on the ledge, you're on the edge. And they have you by the hand, and they say, take a step forward. Now, there's something underneath for you to step on, but you don't know that. You're blindfolded. And you don't know this person. So you say, wait. And they tell you to take a step forward. And you're like, wait, who are you? Don't worry about it. Just trust me. Take a step forward. You're probably not going to take that step forward. Who? I don't know who you are. I know I can feel that I'm on the edge. But I can't trust your judgment right now because I don't know who you are. Now, imagine if that person says to you, I knew your grandmother and your grandfather, and they start calling them by name. I knew your grandfather Mary and your grandpa Joe. And you weren't close to them, but they start telling you stories that you're familiar with. You like, oh, I know these stories. I've heard these stories growing up. My parents told me about these stories. I cherish these stories. These are really good stories. And even though you still don't know this person, now you have something to resonate with. They've gained your trust in a sense because they've stated a familiar territory for you. I know your grandparents. We did this together. Oh, okay. Even though you don't know this person, you're probably more inclined to make that step forward, because even though you can't physically see in front of you, you're blind. You can't see with your physical eyes, but now you have more insight to why you can make this step, because this person who has your hand has revealed something to make it more trustworthy. I hope that makes sense, but that's not blind faith. That's not blind. When you make that decision, you're not making it blind anymore. You have information. So I think that's the opposite of blind faith. And I personally believe that this is an idea that God agrees with and that he wants us to embrace. Because think about this. When Moses asked God what he should call him, he recalls things he did in the past. He says, I am the God of your ancestors. I am the God of Abraham. I am the God of Isaac. I am the God of Jacob. These are all characters of the past. Moses does not know these people personally. These are his forefathers of centuries ago. So that's very important to me. In the very characters he he mentioned are very specific, because these are three major characters who exhibited crazy hope in God when there was no hope. Abraham hoped in God to give him and Sarah a descendant when they were super old and couldn't have kids. And then Isaac, which is their hoped for son, he meditated, he prayed, he waited for his wife Rebecca, which exhibited extreme hope in God. And then they were able to continue the line of descendants by having two sons, Esau and Jacob, who was the last character God mentioned, who Jacob basically wrestled with God his whole entire life until he was old, and then he exhibited hope in God, and then ends up becoming the father of the 12 nations of Israel. So these characters exhibit extreme hope, and I think God said, he could have said anybody. There's more people he could have mentioned, but these are very specific people who exhibited crazy hope. And this verse is actually quoted over, I think, 30 times in the Bible. So it becomes a very important statement for God to reveal himself in this manner. The story of Moses and the Exodus is the main story that centered the Israelites' faith. This is their foundation story. When they reflected back, they reflected on how God rescued them from slavery and formed a people. Now, this does not negate the fact that they were once in slavery. That is a real part of their story. It is there. You can't get rid of it. But focusing on the right part of the story is very important. Slavery is included in the story, but it is not the focus. The focus is on God and what he did to deliver his people, and that gave them hope for the future. So I'm about to contradict myself a little bit. Just hear me out. I'm sorry. Basically, going back to my personal story one last time, being honest, I probably had more optimism, because I can look at my circumstances, and I can see here, I can get help here, I can get help from my fiance, I can get help from my family, my mom, you know what I'm saying, my friends. So I could see how, I wasn't doomed. But I've thankfully never been in a position like the Israelites, where an empire just comes and just take over and just destroy your entire world. However, there are many people around the world whose world has completely crumbled around them, and they don't see how their circumstances is going to work out, or they at least feel that way. So what do you do? How do you find your hope? What do you hope for? So the Israelites, their hope was actually in God himself. And they didn't realize that at that time, but their hope was actually in Jesus, based on promises God made way back in Genesis. And that hope just keeps getting renewed over and over again as you read the Bible, and it's all pointing towards Jesus. So their hope was actually in Jesus. So Jesus comes, does his thing, redeems the world, completes phase 1 of his mission, and now we are all living in the time, which is the same time as the apostles, in which we're awaiting for Jesus' return to complete phase 2 of his mission. So yes, our hope is in Jesus as well, which is a hope in God. But what are we to do in the meantime? Do we just sit around and wait? Or can we actually help contribute in ushering in an era of peace? Or are we just helpless? And that's the question we're going to be getting at in the next video. We're going to be going back to the beginning of Genesis and looking at our role in this world. But for now, I want to leave you with this. I believe that the Hebrew Bible, although it's complicated, it's confusing, and it's very strange at times, I believe it tells a beautiful story, and it embraces every type of person, no matter who you are, no matter what you look like, no matter your age, no matter your color, no matter your gender, no matter your gender identification. I believe it embraces, and God, the God Yahweh, embraces you, no matter who you are. And when you come to believe in God Yahweh, that's probably redundant. I don't know. But whenever you embrace and come to believe in that God, you are embracing that story as well. That story becomes your story. The story of Moses in the Exodus and God rescuing them becomes your foundation story as well, just as it became their foundation story. So for them, it was a way to look forward. They had to look back to that story and many other stories, but that's a very important one. So I'm encouraging you guys and myself, because I need this reminder too, when I'm feeling hopeless. You know, I look out into the world, I don't see God, just like the Israelites didn't. The only way to look forward is to look backward. So thank you guys. Hope that made sense. Yeah, thank you for watching the first video. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you guys for sharing. I got a lot of good feedback on the last one. So yeah, we're going to do this again. Like I said, we're going to talk about Genesis and our role of humanity. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time.